I'm really worried about what now happens on our continent for more than a year. I'm talking about the crisis in Ukraine, but I'm also talking about the crisis in the Middle East and in North Africa. What I see is that our political class is not protecting us against the potential dangers of these crises. I'm now going to focus upon Ukraine. In my eyes, much more is going on than just Russia occupying Crimea, where a majority of Russian speakers live, of whom we don't know how they really voted in the referendum, by the way, but still there live a lot of them. It's likely that a lot of them will have voted in favor of joining Russia, but apart from that, it is an attack on another country. It is changing the borders of a country by force, a country that did not provoke that whatsoever, a country which was temporarily extremely weak. It's still weak, but at that time, just after the revolution, extremely weak, which was the right time to strike for Russia, and they used that. It is also more than Russia occupying a part of the eastern part of Ukraine to create a frozen conflict, as they call it, so that Ukraine cannot enter into the NATO and into the European Union. At least that is what Russia thinks. In my eyes, this whole crisis is about a few things. First of all, it's about the power and the survival of Vladimir Putin. He says that the main reason why, or he doesn't say that, but many people think, and many Russians think, that the main reason why he attacked Ukraine was to prevent Ukraine entering NATO. That is possible, but I think that is very unlikely the main reason. I think it's the third most important reason. The first reason is Vladimir Putin acted immediately after an immediate threat to him appeared. The immediate threat was not NATO membership of Ukraine. Why? Because that would certainly have taken many years before it could enter NATO as a member. Easily 10 years. There are important countries in Europe who do not want that, like Germany. And the whole process had 1,001 opportunities to derail, like the Orange Revolution of 2006 also derailed. Many things could have gone wrong in the next coming 10 years, or maybe 5 years, doesn't matter. Russia could have done plenty of non-violent things to prevent Ukraine entering NATO. And if everything failed, it could still have acted by force. It didn't wait on that. That is not logical. That makes no sense. There must have been another reason. And I think that there is such another reason. Russia acted immediately after an immediate threat. And the immediate threat was the revolution in Ukraine itself. Because right after that, you saw the glimpse of you would see the glimpse of a new Ukraine. Freer, fighting corruption, etc. All the hopes of the revolution. Of course, it first has to materialize. But Vladimir Putin felt that this time it might be different and that it could succeed. And given the fact that many Ukrainians have close family relationships to many people in Russia, propaganda could not prevent many Russians to know this. That there is an emergence of a really free society with good economic growth, with the state of law, with a fight against corruption, with its effects, etc. And Vladimir Putin knew that the people in his country would have wanted that too. And he wanted to prevent that. So he needed to kill the revolution. And he tries to do that by destabilizing Ukraine, by drawing many of its resources into the war, because it needs to in order to survive, that there are no resources left to really reform the country. And then he can destabilize it, and hopefully for him, from his point of view, hopefully end the revolution. That is the main reason why he attacked, not NATO membership. The second reason was a nationalist reason. An attack on Ukraine, ever more proof of that appears in the last half year, was imminent anyway, even with a former president still in power, the ousted president. The preparation for occupying Ukraine was long in the making. The ideology was there, the nationalism was there, and above all, the military means were there. It was all exercised in a big exercise in Belarus. Ukraine not being acknowledged as an independent country, that was long in the making. You could see it in the language use of Russia since 2004, where the official documents that were only available to Russian officials no longer spoke of Ukraine as an independent country, but Ukraine as an area of Russia. Although that was not written, but it was certainly no longer a country, it was an area. That is just an example, a small example. It proves nothing, but it fits in the line of everything. So this was long in the making. It fits within the nationalist ideology of Putin, restoring the Russian Empire and to go into history as a great Russian leader. That is his second reason why he did this. Ukraine is absolutely crucial in this path. And only the third reason are other reasons: membership of EU, membership of NATO. But there was plenty of time and opportunity to stop that. For that, Russia didn't need to attack now. And what I see, and that is frightening me, Putin is worrying me. What is frightening me are my leaders. Their very weak reaction to all of this. You can see in everything that there is no energy in them to protect a European country of 45 million people who want freedom, who basically want our values. There is no energy, no determination in them to stop Russia, to protect these people. The only thing they want, especially Germany and my own country, the Netherlands, they're very cynical in this. Basically, the only thing they want is that the fighting stops. And then excuses will be found to lift the sanctions and return to business as usual. Of course, this goes entirely on the expense of Ukraine. But I do not believe that our leaders really care about that. Our interest, at least they see that, the majority of them sees that, lie in Russia. With Russia you can earn money. Russia simply has much more money, much bigger market than Ukraine. And with Russia you do the geopolitical deals, like the Iran issue, etc., Syria. Not with Ukraine, it has no power over that. That is why our leaders are not really determined to stop Russia. They're only willing, excuse me, they're only willing to discourage Russia a little bit, and they want to create, of course, an alibi for themselves to show to their people, while we do something. It are alibi measures, like that sanction list of individuals who can no longer access their accounts in Western banks, etc., who are no longer allowed to come here. These are all very weak alibi measures. It means nothing much. They don't really want to stop Russia, to make the actions of Vladimir Putin ineffective. And because they are not willing to do that, Vladimir Putin makes them ineffective. Basically, the West, up to now, has not achieved anything. I don't see what it has achieved. The only one that created counterpower towards Russia and that has achieved something is Ukraine itself, and not the West. We are very weak in this. And I hoped that we had learned from Yugoslavia, from the First and the Second World War, from our history, that you have to act against injustice as a continent, that you have to take responsibility, that politicians cannot cynically say, well, we won't do anything because, you know, in elections we will not be rewarded for it. Only when it goes wrong we will be punished for it. It costs a lot of money, it costs human lives. It doesn't make us popular at home. And why should we do that? It has no reward to act against it. You saw that in Yugoslavia. That is why the European continent refused to stop the war. Thanks God there was a man in the White House who after some time decided that enough was enough and that action was needed. And then suddenly, within a second, the whole of the continent twisted. And oh, what a heroes they were. They also fought alongside the United States. Why? Not for Yugoslavia. They still didn't care a damn. They fought because they didn't want to lose America as an ally. You might need it later. Again, self-interest. Like in the case of not acting before that time, it was also self-interest over the dead bodies of a lot of people. But you know, Russia is another piece of cake. It's not the Serb-Bosnian forces. It's another piece of cake. And they don't want to do anything, our leaders. They hope and pray, at least a few of them who still pray, that this war will simply come to an end, that Russia after some time has what it wants, that calm returns, and that is business as usual again. That is what they hope for, but that is not likely. Because my estimate is that Russia will go forward further than this. Ukraine is just the first step. Ukraine needs to be neutralized and be brought on the side of Russia. That is important for Russia as a great empire. But there is also something else which is very important. If the European unification process, despite all these selfish and short-sighted leaders and many ordinary people, by the way, nationalism is on the rise. If still the European unification process gets stronger, Europe gets stronger, then in such a Europe, and Europe is the center of gravity for Russia. Most of its economy is European. Most of its people are European. Russia is predominantly a European nation. So it's very important for Russia what happens in Europe. If in the Europe of today and let alone in the Europe of tomorrow, when the EU is successful, Russia will be a junior partner. But when it can break the solidarity within NATO and the EU, Russia certainly is a senior partner, even a dominant party in Europe. That is a big prize. That is a big prize to win. And they show that they are willing to use violence for it and all kinds of other means, blackmail, bribing people, misinformation, propaganda, secret killings, everything. Everything from the book. They're willing to do that. And I see no reason why they should stop. With this weak leadership in Europe, with Europe still rather weak because of the long and deep crisis, which also took so long because we have weak leaders who did not really want to solve it from a European perspective. They only had the national perspective. Europe is a school class that has to discipline itself. Everybody knows how good that works. Because there is no leadership, Europe is weak. And this is the time for him to strike. Europe is also very weak militarily. The state of many of our armies is simply deplorable. If I see that Germany only has 225 tanks, of which I now read that even the most modern versions are not capable to defeat the Russian tanks of the modern versions. Then if they have 180 in principle modern Eurofighter planes, of which 40 fly, the rest has a lack of spare parts and is unoperational. If I look to the Dutch army, Once we had 915 tanks, now we have 0. Of our 60 F-16 fighter planes left, we once had 213. Only one squadron of less than 20 are still capable to fight. The rest doesn't work anymore. I mean, you can read, and that is in many armies. We are now on our weakest point as Europe, and maybe Russia compared to us in its strongest point. Now is the time to strike, and I think that Russia knows that. I think Putin knows that, and he's willing to do that. Believe me. So I see dark clouds, unfortunately. I see weak leaders here on the European side. I see one man on the Russian side who's willing to use force and who has a big army. And I see dark clouds, and that's why I say we should prepare for war. We should prepare for all eventualities. We should raise our budgets for defense dramatically. We should have big exercises. We should have a new vision on our army. We should create new weapon systems like the Leopard 3. A new tank has to be made, and all etc. etc. This is what we now need to do. If we don't do it and stay weak in a world which is in jungle, we provoke with our weakness forces that want to dominate, and Vladimir Putin is certainly one of them. I hope that we react on time. I'm really worried about our future, although right now I'm pretty much a caller in the desert. Some experts, military experts, political experts, agree with me from the left and the right, by the way, not extremists or so, but they're also callers in the desert. Our people don't want to really see it. They do not want to accept the consequences of it. More money to defense. And for our leaders, it's the same. For political reasons, they don't want that. That really worries me. So I hope we act in time, and that we are in time.